What's up, guys? The Mailbag's back after a 1-week hiatus. I'm here to answer all your questions. UFC 254 Fight Week is underway. We got a big one this weekend. Some of our questions revolve around that. This first one does, at least. Let's jump into it. At Low Post Sports asks, after defeating Gaethje, who's next for the Eagle? Will 30-0 be the goal? GSP. 30-0 is the goal. Khabib's been planning this out for as long as he's been doing interviews about it. And while the GSP fight seems like it would be massive, I mean, I don't think anybody would argue with it being a major fight. Khabib going for 30-0 and potentially his retirement fight will be big regardless. Sure, will it not be to the magnitude of a GSP or a McGregor fight? No doubt about it. But that doesn't mean that it has to be. I mean, 30-0 is an accomplishment within itself. If he is going to retire on top, if he declares that beforehand, I honestly think you could put him in against whoever the number one contender is at that time, whether it be who knows? I mean, Tony Ferguson could be in the mix at that point. Michael Chandler could be in the mix at that point. McGregor, it could be GSP. There are options, but I think regardless of who it's against, 30-0 will be a selling point of that fight, and it's good enough to stand on its legs alone. All right, second question, I like it. It's not just about a current event, it's a bigger picture. Question from Hector V asks, Pride FC used to have one 10-minute and one 5-minute round fight format with red card penalties for stalling, which I enjoyed. I'd love it if the UFC would do the same or have one continuous 15-minute round for non-title fights and one 25-minute round for title fights with red card penalties. Thoughts? I mean, the idea in theory, I think would improve the action. I think that opening round, that 10-minute round would make for more flow. It would definitely change a lot of the game planning we see in certain ways. And I think that the stalling penalties, like you said, sure, I mean, that would obviously, in theory, make things become a little bit more exciting. There'd be less wall and stall, which I think is the biggest issue that there is with MMA. You know, the ground stuff, if a guy can't get up off the ground, that's one thing. But I think that sometimes that wall and stall stuff is kind of a real killer in terms of eyeballs that don't usually watch the sport coming in, sitting on the couch, maybe paying money and then seeing that. So as good as these ideas are, we know one thing about the UFC, and that's that they like sticking to the recipe. It's something that's worked for them. I personally would prefer that they would stick with it. I think that would be, totally changing the sport. It would have to be a gradual couple of changes, and it would be big. Each change would be a huge deal. So I don't see that being something that the UFC is interested in. But in a theoretical scenario, I like where you're coming from, and us MMA fans can kind of have our imaginary scenarios from time to time, right? Third and final question comes from Dat Dude Jr., who we have not heard from for a few weeks. So good to hear from you, Johnny Cotton. As the year winds down, it seems Charles Oliveira is the odd man out at 155 pounds. After his huge win over Kevin Lee, when and who should he face next? This is a great question. There's a couple of names that come to mind looking at the rankings and who's available. I would have loved the Makhachev fight. Seems like Dos Anjos Makhachev is a matchup they want to preserve. So with that, taking into account that, I think Ali Quinta would be a good one, but I think Dan Hooker would be an awesome matchup. Hooker looking to rebound, Charles Oliveira looking to continue his ascent up the ladder. And I think it would be a fight that would make sense for both men. So that could be a main event. Who knows what the UFC needs to, how many more main events the UFC needs on their December and January schedule. I'm guessing a handful, so why not make that fight? I think that's perfect. So yeah, UFC, book it.